The knock wasn't polite, it was a demand. 3 heavy thuds that rattled the front windows of the house my late husband and I had built with our bare hands. I knew that knock. My son, Michael. He'd never learned gentleness, not as a boy, not as a man. When I opened the door, there he was, tailored suit, gold watch flashing in the sunlight, his jaw tight with impatience. And just behind him, his wife Chelsea, clutching her designer purse like it might bite her, wearing that permanent vinegar smile that made my skin crawl. "Mom," Michael said briskly, brushing past me without so much as a hug. "We need to talk." No hello, no warmth, just business. I placed my dish towel on the counter, wiping soap from my hands. "Coffee? Tea?" I asked out of habit. Chelsea's eyes swept across my living room, the photographs on the wall, the quilt on the sofa, the clock that had ticked since my wedding day, as if each piece of my life was clutter to be catalogued. "No," she said, her tone dripping with disdain. "We won't be staying long." My stomach tightened. Whatever this was, it wasn't a friendly visit. Michael straightened his tie, the way he always did before saying something calculated. "Mom, Chelsea and I have been discussing your living situation. You're rattling around in this big old house all by yourself. It doesn't make sense." I blinked at him. "Doesn't make sense? Michael, I've lived here 30 years, since your father and I bought it. Since you took your first steps down that hallway, what doesn't make sense?" He offered a smile so smooth it was practically an insult. "It's too much for you, Mom. Too much to clean, too much to maintain. We think it's time you downsized." Chelsea chimed in, her voice honeyed poison. "There are beautiful senior apartments just a few miles away, with staff, activities, friends your own age. Doesn't that sound more suitable?" My heart thudded against my ribs. "Suitable?" Michael's eyes hardened. He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice like he was breaking bad news. "The truth is, Mom, Chelsea and I have bigger plans for this place. We've already been in touch with developers. They're very interested in the land. This is a great opportunity. For us. And for you. Less stress. Less responsibility." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The house where I raised my children, where I cooked Sunday dinners, where I sat by my husband's bedside as he took his final breath, reduced to land. "And where exactly do you think I should go?" I asked, my voice trembling. Michael shrugged, casual, as if this were all prearranged. "You'll love the apartment, and you'll thank us later. It's what's best." Chelsea tilted her head, smiling in that smug way of hers. "It's settled, then." Settled. The word rang in my ears like a verdict. I stared at them, every nerve in my body screaming. They had already decided. They thought I was weak and pliable, that I'd roll over, grateful for whatever scraps of suitability they offered. But here's what my golden boy son didn't know. The deed to this house, every square inch of it, bore one name. Mine. They thought they could strip me of the home where I carved out a life with my husband and raised all of my children. A home where every wall held a memory of laughter, grief, and survival. But they were about to learn just how wrong they were. They had just walked into a war, and I would let them believe they'd already won, until the day I made them regret ever underestimating me. 3 days later, they returned. This time, Chelsea carried a leather portfolio stuffed with glossy brochures. "We've done some research," Michael announced, settling into my husband's old recliner without asking. The sight of him there, in Frank's chair, made my chest tight with rage. Chelsea spread the brochures across my coffee table like she was dealing cards. "Sunset Manor has a waiting list, but Michael's firm has connections. They can get you in within the month." I picked up one of the brochures, smiling seniors playing cards, doing water aerobics, gathered around a piano. It looked pleasant enough, but it wasn't home. "The deposit is only $5,000, Michael said. "We can cover that for you. Consider it our gift." "How generous," I murmured, flipping through the pages. My fingers traced the amenities list. Communal dining, scheduled activities, movie nights. Everything designed to fill the empty hours of people who'd been discarded by their families. Chelsea leaned forward, her voice dripping with false concern. "And don't worry about the transition. We'll handle everything. The movers, the estate sale, all the paperwork." Estate sale. They'd already planned to sell my belongings, my memories, my life. "When exactly did you have in mind?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. Michael and Chelsea exchanged a look. "Well," he said, "the developer is very interested. They'd like to move quickly. We were thinking 2 weeks? 2 weeks. 30 years of marriage, of raising children, of building a life, and they wanted me gone in 2 weeks. I set the brochure down carefully. That seems very fast. Ripping off a Band-Aid, Chelsea said with a bright smile. It's easier that way. I nodded slowly, letting the silence stretch. They were watching me like vultures, waiting for me to cave, to accept their generous offer to dispose of me. I suppose I should visit this place, I said finally. See what I think. Michael's shoulders relaxed. That's smart, Mom. Very practical. I've always raised you to be practical, I replied, the double meaning lost on him entirely. After they left, I sat in Frank's chair, still warm from my son's body, and let the tears come. Not tears of defeat, but of grief. Grief for the son I'd raised, who'd somehow become this stranger willing to throw his own mother away for money. But beneath the grief, something harder was crystallizing. Frank used to say I had a spine of steel wrapped in velvet. He was right. It was time my son remembered that. The next morning, I drove to Sunset Manor. The facility was exactly what the brochures promised. Clean, cheerful, filled with the institutional warmth of a place designed to warehouse the elderly. Mrs. Patterson from down the street had been calling all week, worried sick about the rumors flying around the neighborhood. Michael had been telling everyone his poor mother was struggling to maintain the house, that he was helping her transition to more appropriate housing. I played my part perfectly. It's lovely, I told the director, Mrs. Kim, as she showed me around. Very comprehensive. We find our residents adjust quickly, she said, leading me past a group of women knitting in the sunroom. Family visits become much easier when they know you're safe and cared for. I nodded, letting my voice waver just slightly. My son thinks it's for the best. Mrs. Kim's smile tightened. She'd heard this story before. Children convincing themselves they were being helpful while they cleared out inconvenient parents. That afternoon, I made a different kind of visit. To Hartley and Associates, the law firm where Frank and I had drawn up our wills 25 years ago. James Hartley was retired now, but his son David had taken over the practice. He remembered me from Frank's funeral 3 years ago. Mrs. Morrison, he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. What can I do for you? I explained the situation, watching his expression grow darker with each detail. Let me be very clear, he said when I finished. The deed to your house is in your name alone. Your husband transferred his interest to you 5 years before he died. A smart tax move, as I recall. Michael has absolutely no legal claim to the property. But what if I became incapacitated? What if they tried to have me declared incompetent? David's jaw tightened. That would require medical evidence and a court proceeding. And frankly, Mrs. Morrison, you seem sharper than most people half your age. Any attempt to have you declared incompetent would fail spectacularly. He pulled out a thick file folder. I took the liberty of reviewing all your documents. Your will, the deed, the property taxes, everything is in perfect order. If anything happened to you, the house would go to your younger son, James, not Michael. James, my baby, living in Portland with his family, running his little bookstore and sending me pictures of my grandchildren every week. The son who called me every Sunday, who remembered my birthday, who still signed his cards, love your little boy. Michael didn't know about the will. He assumed, as the eldest, that everything would automatically come to him. What would you advise? I asked. David leaned back in his chair. Legally, do nothing. You're under no obligation to explain your property rights to anyone. But if they continue to pressure you, yes, document everything. Dates, conversations, witnesses. If this escalates to harassment or elder abuse, we'll need evidence. I left his office with copies of every document, my confidence restored. Michael thought he held all the cards, but he was playing poker with a deck he'd never seen. That evening, my phone rang. It was my sister Margaret calling from Phoenix. Dorothy, what's this nonsense about you moving to some old folks' home? I sank into my kitchen chair. Where did you hear that? Chelsea called me, said you were having trouble managing the house, that Michael was helping you find somewhere more suitable. She wanted my support in convincing you it was the right decision. My blood pressure spiked. They'd gone behind my back, rallying family members to pressure me. And what did you tell her? Margaret snorted. I told her you're the most capable person I know and that if you wanted to move, you'd have decided that yourself. Then I told her to mind her own damn business. Relief flooded through me. Thank you. Dorothy, what's really going on here? I told her everything. When I finished, the silence on the other end stretched so long I thought we'd been disconnected. That little bastard, Margaret finally said. How dare he? I'm handling it. How? I smiled, looking out at the garden Frank and I had planted together. The oak tree we'd watched grow from a sapling, the fence he'd painted the summer before he died. By reminding him whose house this really is. Michael called Thursday evening, his voice warm with false cheer. Hey, Mom! Chelsea and I were thinking, why don't you come over for dinner Sunday? We'd love to have you. My suspicion immediately spiked. Michael hadn't invited me for dinner in months. That's very sweet, I said carefully. Actually, I thought we might invite the whole family. James is flying in from Portland with Sarah and the kids. Aunt Margaret said she could drive up from Phoenix. It'll be like old times. My heart sank. He was orchestrating something, gathering witnesses for whatever performance he had planned. I'd love to see James, I said, and the children. Great, Sunday at 6. Oh, and Mom? Maybe don't mention anything about the house situation. I want to break the news to everyone gently. After I hung up, I sat in the growing darkness, pieces clicking into place. Michael was planning to announce my decision to move, surrounding me with family members who'd pressure me to go along with it. Classic manipulation, make the victim look unreasonable for refusing such generous help. But two could play that game. I called James first. Mom! His voice was bright with genuine affection. Michael said you wanted everyone together for dinner. It'll be great to see you. James, I said carefully, has Michael mentioned anything to you about my living situation? What do you mean? Nothing specific, well, never mind. We'll talk when you're here. I could hear the concern creeping into his voice. Is everything okay? Everything's fine, sweetheart. I'm just looking forward to seeing you and the babies. Next, I called Margaret back. He's planning some kind of intervention, she said immediately. I can smell it from here. What do you think I should do? Play along. Let him hang himself with his own rope. But Dorothy, bring backup. Backup? Bring the deed. Let everyone see exactly who owns what. Sunday arrived gray and drizzly, matching my mood. I dressed carefully in the navy blue dress Frank had always loved, added my mother's pearl necklace, and slipped the deed into my purse. Michael and Chelsea's house was a testament to their success. Marble counters, high ceilings, furniture that looked expensive but felt cold. Everything designed to impress rather than comfort. James arrived with his family just as I was hanging up my coat. My younger son looked so much like his father. The same gentle eyes, the same easy smile. His wife Sarah hugged me tight, and my twin granddaughters, now 7 years old, practically tackled me with enthusiasm. Grandma Dorothy, Daddy said we get to sleep over. Michael appeared in the doorway, his smile strained. Actually, girls, Grandma might not be staying the night. The girls' faces fell. Why not? We'll see, I said, ruffling their hair. Maybe Grandma has some big news to share. Michael's eyes sharpened, but before he could respond, Margaret swept through the door like a force of nature. Well, well, she said, surveying the marble and crystal. Fancy digs, Michael. Business must be good. Chelsea appeared with a tray of appetizers, her smile plastic. We've been very blessed. Dinner was an elaborate affair. Roast beef, expensive wine, cloth napkins. Michael played the perfect host, ensuring everyone's glass was full, asking about James's bookstore, complimenting Margaret on her retirement. But I could see him working up to something, the way he'd done as a child when he was planning to ask for money. Finally, as Chelsea served dessert, Michael tapped his wine glass with his fork. I'm so glad everyone could be here tonight, he began. Family is everything, and I wanted to share some news about Mom. The table went quiet. James set down his fork, his expression suddenly alert. Michael's voice took on that practiced tone he used with clients. As you all know, Mom's been living alone in that big house since Dad passed. It's been 3 years now, and frankly, we're all worried about her. Worried about what? Margaret's voice was sharp. The house is too much for her, Chelsea jumped in. Too big, too expensive to maintain. We think it's time she moved somewhere more appropriate, more social. More social? James echoed. Michael nodded earnestly. There's a wonderful senior community nearby, Sunset Manor, beautiful facilities, professional staff, activities designed for people Mom's age. I watched the faces around the table. James looked confused. Sarah seemed uncomfortable. The twins were picking at their cake, bored by adult conversation. Margaret leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. "And what does Dorothy think about this?" All eyes turned to me. Michael's gaze was intense, pleading. Chelsea smiled encouragingly. This was my cue to play the grateful mother, overwhelmed by her generous son's thoughtfulness. Instead, I reached into my purse. "Actually," I said, pulling out the deed, "I think there's been some confusion about whose decision this is to make." The silence in the dining room was so complete I could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. Michael's face had gone pale, his wine glass frozen halfway to his lips. I unfolded the deed carefully, smoothing it on the table beside my dessert plate. The legal language was dense, but the key information was clear enough. "James," I said, looking at my younger son, "would you mind reading the ownership line for everyone?" James leaned forward, squinting at the document. "Property owner, Dorothy Elizabeth Morrison. Sole ownership as of 5 years ago." Margaret's mouth twitched with suppressed satisfaction. "Sole ownership. Interesting." Michael found his voice. "Mom, what's this about?" I met his eyes steadily. "Your father transferred his half of the house to me years before he died. Tax purposes," the lawyer said. "Very smart financial planning." Chelsea's fork clattered against her plate. But you need help managing it. Michael's just trying to..." "To what?" I interrupted, my voice still calm. "To sell my house out from under me? To move me into an institution so he can profit from land I own?" James's face was darkening. "Michael, what the hell is going on?" "It's not like that," Michael said quickly. "Mom, you're misunderstanding. We just want what's best for you." I pulled out my phone and scrolled to the recording app I'd learned to use just for this occasion. "Let me play something for everyone. This is from last Sunday's conversation." Michael's voice filled the room. "The truth is, Mom, Chelsea and I have bigger plans for this house. We've already been in touch with developers. They're interested in the land. It would be a great opportunity for us." The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah looked horrified. "Michael, you can't be serious. You've been planning to sell Mom's house?" James's voice was low, dangerous. "The house where we grew up? Where Dad built that swing set in the backyard?" Michael's composure cracked. "You don't understand the financial pressure we're under. Chelsea's pregnant." "I'm what?" Chelsea whirled on him, eyes blazing. Michael's face went red. "I mean, we're trying to start a family. We need the money for..." "For what?" I asked quietly. "Your gambling debts? The second mortgage you took out on this house that you thought I didn't know about?" The color drained from Michael's face completely. "How did you..." "I may be old, but I'm not stupid," I said. "I have friends at the bank, Michael. I know about your financial problems. I know Chelsea's not pregnant. I know you've been lying to everyone about why you want me out of my house." Margaret was grinning now, not even trying to hide her satisfaction. "Dorothy, you magnificent woman." James stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "I can't believe this, Michael. How could you try to manipulate Mom like this?" "She's being unreasonable," Michael exploded, his careful facade finally cracking completely. "She's rattling around in that house all alone, wasting space, wasting money. It's not fair." "Not fair to whom?" I asked. "To us, to your family. That house is worth a fortune, and you're just sitting in it like some kind of hoarder." The twins looked up from their cake, startled by their uncle's raised voice. Sarah quickly ushered them into the living room. "That house," I said, standing slowly, "is mine. I worked 3 jobs to help pay for it while you were in college. I painted every room, planted every flower in the garden, nursed your father through his final illness in the bedroom where we spent 30 years of marriage." "Mom..." I am not done speaking. My voice cut through his interruption like a blade. "You stood in my living room last week and told me I wasn't suitable to live in my own home. You brought brochures like I was a problem to be solved, a burden to be managed." Chelsea tried to interrupt. "We never said..." "You said I wasn't polished enough for your image. Sound familiar?" Michael's jaw tightened. "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean, son?" The endearment hung in the air like a challenge. For a moment I saw a flicker of the little boy he used to be, the one who brought me dandelions and told me I was the prettiest mommy in the world. Then it was gone. "I meant that you're being selfish," he said coldly, "clinging to the past instead of thinking about the future, our future." I nodded slowly, folding the deed and putting it back in my purse. I see. James moved to stand beside me. Mom, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Neither did I, Margaret said, glaring at Michael. Trying to steal your own mother's house. Frank would be ashamed. Michael's face went white at the mention of his father. Don't you dare! Don't I dare what? Tell the truth? Your father built that house with his own hands. He planted every tree in that yard, and you want to sell it to strangers so you can pay off your gambling debts. They're not gambling debts, Michael shouted. The room fell silent again. Even he seemed to realize what he'd just admitted. I looked at my eldest son, this stranger wearing my child's face, and felt something break inside my chest. Not my heart. That had been breaking slowly for months. Something harder. Something that had been holding me back from doing what needed to be done. James, I said quietly, would you mind driving me home? Of course, Mom. I walked toward the door, then paused and turned back to Michael. By the way, I've decided to make some changes to my will. I think it's time I remembered who my real family is. And with that, I walked out of my son's house for the last time. The drive home was quiet. James didn't push me to talk, just played soft music and kept his eyes on the road while I stared out at the familiar neighborhoods where I'd lived my entire adult life. When we pulled into my driveway, he finally spoke. Mom, I'm so sorry. I had no idea Michael was pressuring you like this. It's not your fault, sweetheart. But I should have known. I should have been checking on you more, visiting more often. I turned to look at my younger son, this gentle man who'd inherited his father's kindness along with his eyes. James, you call me every Sunday. You send pictures of the girls. You remember my birthday and our anniversary and the day your father died. You are everything a mother could want in a son. But Michael made his choice. Now I have to make mine. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea and a legal pad, writing out my thoughts. By morning, I knew exactly what I was going to do. First, I called David Hartley. I want to update my will, I told him, immediately. What changes did you want to make? Michael is to be removed entirely. Everything goes to James, with specific provisions for my granddaughter's education. And I want to establish a charitable trust that will receive half of my estate. What kind of charity? I smiled, thinking of all the seniors I'd met at Sunset Manor, warehoused by children who found them inconvenient. Elder advocacy, legal aid for seniors being financially abused by their families. That's very specific. I have my reasons. But David, I also want to make an immediate donation to get this started. There are people facing what I'm facing right now who don't have the resources to fight back. I want to establish a fund immediately, $50,000 to start, for emergency legal aid. An immediate donation and a future bequest? Exactly. Let Michael and Chelsea see in the newspaper that I'm giving away their inheritance both now and later. Next, I called the local newspaper. The social reporter, a young woman named Jessica Chandler, had written a lovely piece about Frank's community garden project a few years back. Mrs. Morrison, how nice to hear from you. What can I do for you? I'd like to make an announcement about a charitable donation I'm making and my plans for my estate. The story ran on the front page of the lifestyle section. Local widow establishes elder advocacy fund. It included a photo of me in my garden and quotes about my immediate $50,000 donation to establish emergency legal aid for seniors, plus my intention to leave half my estate to expand the program. The article specifically mentioned protecting seniors from family members who view inheritance as an entitlement rather than a gift. Michael called within an hour of the paper hitting doorsteps. Mom, what the hell is this article about? Language, Michael. Don't language me. You're giving away my inheritance to strangers. $50,000 just gone. I'm giving away my money to people who need it, and yes, $50,000 is just the beginning. Half of everything I own will go to help seniors like me when I die. That money belongs to the family. No, Michael, the money belongs to me and the house belongs to me, and I'll decide what happens to both. There was a long pause. When he spoke again, his voice was different, smaller, almost pleading. Mom, please, Chelsea and we're in trouble. Real trouble. I need that house. For a moment, my heart wavered. This was my son, my firstborn, the baby I'd carried for 9 months and loved for 34 years. Then I remembered his voice in that dining room. She's being selfish. It's not fair. You're just sitting in it like some kind of hoarder. I'm sorry you're in trouble, Michael, but that's not my problem to solve. I'm your son. Yes, I said quietly. You are. And last week you tried to throw your mother out of her home to pay your debts. What does that make you? The line went quiet for so long I thought he'd hung up. Mom, I'm sorry, I was desperate. I didn't mean… You meant every word. And more importantly, you meant every action. You brought brochures to my house, Michael. You called my sister behind my back. You scheduled a developer to look at my property without my permission. How did you know about the developer? I'd been bluffing, but his reaction confirmed my suspicion. Because I'm not as helpless as you thought I was. 3 weeks later, Michael showed up at my door again. This time, he was alone. No Chelsea, no expensive suit, no gold watch. He looked haggard, older, like he'd aged years in the span of a month. Mom, please, can we talk? I stood in the doorway, not inviting him in. What do you want, Michael? I want to apologize, really apologize. What I did was wrong. I was desperate and scared, and I made terrible choices. I studied his face, looking for sincerity. Go on. Chelsea left me. Turns out when the money disappeared and the social humiliation hit, her loyalty disappeared with it. I felt a flicker of something. Not quite satisfaction, but acknowledgement. I wasn't surprised at all. I'd recognized her type from the start. I'm sorry to hear that. No, you're not, Mom. I know you never really liked her. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I remembered from his childhood when he was nervous. Mom, I lost everything, the house, the car, my job, the gambling. It got out of control, and I thought if I could just get enough money together… You thought you could steal it from me. He flinched. Yes. And now you want forgiveness. I want to earn it, however long it takes. I looked at my son, really looked at him. Beneath the expensive haircut and designer clothes that were now rumpled and stained, I could see the little boy who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms. But I could also see the man who'd stood in my living room and called me unsuitable for my own home. Michael, I said gently, I forgave you the moment you walked out of my life. But forgiveness doesn't mean trust, and it doesn't mean consequences go away. I know that. I miss you, Mom. I miss being your son. The words hit me like a physical blow. For a moment I wavered, my hand moving toward the door lock. Then I remembered something Frank used to say. Love isn't about what we feel, it's about what we choose. I'd chosen to love Michael for 34 years, but he'd chosen to see me as an obstacle to solving his financial problems. You'll always be my son, I said, but you'll never be welcome in my house again. I closed the door and walked back to my kitchen, where I made myself a cup of tea and sat in the silence of the home I'd fought to keep. Outside, I could hear Michael's footsteps on the porch, lingering for a long moment before finally walking away. 2 months later, I got a letter. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. Mom, I'm in gambling therapy now and AA as well. I know I can't undo what I did, but I'm trying to understand why I did it. The therapist says I need to make amends, but she also says I have to respect your boundaries. So I'm writing this letter that I probably won't send, just to tell you that I love you, that I'm sorry, that I dream about the house sometimes, dream about helping Dad build that deck, about you teaching me to make pancakes in the kitchen on Saturday mornings. I threw all of that away for money that I didn't even end up getting. I foolishly traded my own mother for a casino debt. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even deserve it. But I just wanted you to know that I remember who I used to be, and I'm trying to become that person again. Your son, Michael. I read the letter 3 times, then folded it and put it in the drawer with Frank's old reading glasses and the hospital bracelet he'd worn when he died. Some things were worth keeping, even when they broke your heart. But my house, the house where I'd raised my children and buried my husband and planted my garden, that was mine. And it would stay mine until the day I died, no matter how many people thought they knew better. My son thought he could evict me from my own life. Turns out, he was the one who ended up homeless in my heart. What would you have done if your own child tried to kick you out of your home? Would you forgive or lock the door for good? Tell me in the comments. I'm curious if you show mercy. If you love hearing about poetic justice and revenge, hit subscribe, then like the video. I drop new stories daily. And if you thought Michael was bad, wait until you watch the story that just popped up on the screen.